Adobe Acrobat Studio, your new foundation. Use media spaces to generate a presentation. Grab your docs, your permits, your moves. AI levels up your pitch, gets it in a groove. Choose a template with your timeless cool. Come on now, let's flex those tools. Draft, design, deliver, make it sing. AI builds the deck so you can build that thing. Do that, do that, do that with Acrobat.
Learn more at adobe.com/do that with Acrobat.
Excuse me! Taxi!
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
By the way, Rita, there was another incident, Old Dominion.
Old Dominion University.
That's right. And unfortunately, one of the students who's a member of ROTC was killed. The shooter was killed. And the other student who was shot is in critical condition. That's another terrible story.
And let's talk about the person who was responsible in that case, Judge. You can't. It's so horrible. He was already found guilty of being a co-conspirator with ISIS. Yes,
that's right.
Yes. So, look at this common threads. This is very concerning, you guys. Well, joining us to talk about all of this and so much more is New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, it's so great to have you here. First, your reaction to all of this, all this news. Very scary stuff.
You know that anti-Semitism has been on the rise, and people are not able to respectfully disagree in our communities, which is very frustrating. And I think that's something we have to learn how to do again. We have to be able to have our views. That's the nature of our country. That's the way our founders set it up. And it's unfortunate to seeing people resort to violence, and especially, what we're seeing, and, obviously all over. But it's a really sad situation, and I'm just praying for everyone and everyone who has sustained so many losses.
Yeah, and the fact is, as I said, a good person with a gun took out a very bad person with a gun, especially in this case in West Bloomfield, right outside of Detroit, where the guy rammed the vehicle. It looks like he would have done mass damage, but thank goodness there was a courageous, and I think about the case in New York too. It was the cops who quickly rushed and tackled the guys who were throwing the bombs.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah, but Rita, here's the interesting thing, that it doesn't have to be a police officer with a gun. We have a Second Amendment for a reason, and the Second Amendment conveys rights to people. They're so important that our founders thought they should be the second most right that we have against a government. Can you imagine if all those incredible women who stood up against the Iranian regime had been armed, and the people that stood by them and were just slaughtered and killed by their own government if they only had the ability to defend themselves and to stand up against their government. So these are sacred rights. And I just want to point to you something. I know that Mr. Katz just mentioned something about Kathy Hochul, who once was a supporter of Second Amendment rights. And what a tragedy that someone that is actually running the state of New York as its highest position is not a huge supporter of Second Amendment rights. There was a famous case that the Supreme Court ruled on recently called the Bruin decision that restored full rights to American citizens. And I just want to point something out. The Legal Aid Society of New York City responded to the Bruin decision, which took away the old Sullivan law, that extra law that required additional restrictions. And here was their comment. This is New York City's, and I would say probably maybe left-leaning for sure, maybe even more. It said New York's gun licensing laws have been arbitrarily and discriminately applied disproportionately ensnaring the people we represent, the majority of whom are from communities of color, in the criminal legal system. This decision may be an affirmative step toward ending arbitrary licensing standards that have inhibited the rights of lawful black and brown gun ownership in New York. How about that?
Wow.
So this is where the Supreme Court went. And who wrote the great Bruin decision, the landmark Second Amendment decision? Justice Clarence Thomas.
Wow. I have to ask you, Claudia Tenney, too, in the middle of all this, there was just a vote a little bit ago. They're still not funding Department of Homeland Security. What more does it take? We had the guys throwing the bombs outside of Gracie Mansion. And then, of course, now you're hearing all this instance, the one in Old Dominion just in the last few hours. And then you got the one in Michigan in the last few hours. And they're still not funding the Department of Homeland Security?
Well, there's a nuance to that, Rita, because we are funding the Department of Homeland Security. We put that in the Working Families Tax Cut bill last year. So for the large part, 97% of it is being funded. Government, there's 3% that isn't, and that 3% includes TSA, which is why everyone's waiting in line for hours and hours at the airport right now, and why those wonderful people that serve there, and I know it's an inconvenience, but this is what terrorism in New York City and the Pentagon and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and our country brought us. But these people are going without pay. Our Coast Guard, our Secret Service, our cybersecurity networks. By the way, that is one of our biggest vulnerabilities. If one of our enemies wants to really go after us, they can attack our cybersecurity. Those people are coming to work without pay. This is what the Democrats said. We passed the DHS funding, the full funding of government again last week in the House of Representatives with Republican votes. It is Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate that will not allow any of those Democrats to get us to 60 votes other than John Fetterman. And we need to get 60 votes to get that passed.
You know, one of the things, too, that's in the lack of funding in that 3% that you're talking about is CISA. I just learned it's the cybersecurity. And there was a strike today on Stryker. Did you see Stryker, the medical company in Michigan, had 50,000 of their employees hacked by an Iranian group? So, I mean, of all times.
It's going to be our corporate interests, our energy infrastructure, our water infrastructure. These are all things that are run by cyber and computers now, and can be destroyed that way as well. We have really important assets that need to be protected. This is a no-brainer. We should not ever hold people who work in these important positions hostage because the Democrats want to take a shot at ICE that is already funded from last year. They're getting their funding. The wall is going to continue to be built. We're going to continue to secure our border and protect the people in this country.
Claudia, one thing came up in the show a couple of days ago. When you buy an airline ticket, you pay $5.40 of that airline ticket is for TSA. Now, if the customer paid for it already, why isn't he getting service? What happened to that money?
Yeah, well, that money is collected. It's my understanding that money is collected by the airline, and a lot of that money is remitted. So, say companies.
So then the airlines, maybe President Trump should issue an executive order having the airlines remit it to some place where the TSA can get paid.
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm guessing that there is some place in there where that money eventually gets paid to TSA or to the airport, because remember, New York-based companies like, for example, JetBlue, that are actually in New York, and they're founded in New York, and their corporate headquarters are in New York, and their business is there. They have to pay a huge fee to have that, to have the hangars and to have the terminals and everything they have at these airports. And all of the major airlines, the commercial airlines, have to do that, and that's part of the price that they pay.
Well, I mean, we have to find some way to pay these people. I mean, the Coast Guard, isn't that part of the Department of Defense? Maybe it should be part of the Department of Defense.
Well, yes, it is. But here's what the president has done. Remember, we went through this debacle last fall when the Democrats held us up for so long in a shutdown. President Trump was able to find money in other areas that could be used temporarily to cover the cost of a lot of our service members who weren't getting paid last year's full shutdown. And some of that, we had to repay a lot of that, but it at least gave us a temporary hold. And the president was really very resourceful, along with Secretary Pete Hegseth, got in and found places where we could keep our troops going in a really tough time. And now we're in a war. And we're against adversaries all over the world. And in complex parts and in complex situations, we need to revamp and get our technology at the highest levels we can. China is nibbling at our heels and on our doorstep, and in some cases they're on par with us when it comes to technology and their ability to dominate around the world, and they're everywhere. They're in South America. Finally, President Trump took leadership role and said we need to protect our hemisphere, and we're starting to show some strength down there, where China, Russia, even Cuba right now are aiding and abetting the Russians and the Chinese down in South and Central. This is our backyard. Trump is helping us there. You're also seeing, President Trump helping us around the world in other parts of the world. We're taking out our real enemies. And I know that people are concerned about what's happening in Iran, but these people have killed and maimed and tortured enough American citizens all the way back to the humiliation from 1979, which I remember, the Marines that were murdered and slaughtered in our barracks in Beirut in 1983, and continued fatwas and killings of American soldiers throughout all the last several decades. It's time for Iran and the people of Iran to have an opportunity to put in a government that they can rely on, where they can join the rest of the Arab communities in the Abraham Accords and have some peace and prosperity.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, we'd love having you on. Thank you so much, and for always fighting the good fight for America. Thank you.
Great to talk to you all.
You too. Thank you very much.